In the Bible, it says that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So, if I'm not mistaken, that is hodos, aletheis, and zoe. But check that fact and make sure that's correct. So, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to explain to you grammar. Like the definite article the isn't the same as the indefinite article a. So if Jesus would have said, I am a truth, a life, a way, then that would have meant that there's other ways, right? Like Oprah Winfrey, I noticed on a Facebook comment, they had a quote from her explaining something she had said about the many ways and the many roads that lead to God, right? No, that's not right. So anyways, what I wanted to do here is I wanted to show you a little bit about some grammar. And I'm just going to do some basic things here because I didn't pay attention in English class, honestly. So if I want to learn something about grammar, I got to go to the book. And I'm also going to do a little bit about sentence structure here, right? Because the Bible was written in English, but the Bible isn't originally English. The Greek set of grammar rules would actually follow something completely different from the English set of grammar rules. So what you have to do is you have to go to a book like this and open it and go to the index first off, right? So I go to the index and it says B1, parts of speech. And then, so what I did is I opened up there to make sure that they were there so I could read it to you. So I'm going to read to you the parts of speech. There, it says, traditional grammar recognizes 8 parts of speech: noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, conjunction, and interjection. Many words can function as more than one part of speech. For example, depending on its use in a sentence, a word paint can be a noun. The paint is wet. Or a verb, please paint the ceiling. Next. So there you go. That's just an example of what the English entails. So I like what it goes on to say actually about nouns. I wanted to show you this because this will help back what I said just a moment ago. A noun is the name of a person, place, thing, or an idea. Nouns are often, but not always, signaled by an article, a, and, the. So that's what I was saying a minute ago about the way, the truth, and the life. It's not a. If it was a, there would be that would mean there's many ways and not just one way. That's why it says the. It's the definite article, right? So, and another simple one to know just right offhand is conjunctions. So when the Bible says and but, I don't know all the different kinds of conjunctions. I know there's subordinating conjunctions and coordinating conjunctions. And but are one of those. I can't remember exactly. But what that does is whenever you're reading, like, for example, Romans chapter 8, I mean, every time the next verse begins, it says and, but, and, therefore. So everything is connected. For, like when the Bible says, for God so loved the world, for is a conjunction, is connecting it to what had been said in John 3:15. So if you go around telling people John 3:16 all the time and you don't read John 3:15, you're missing the rest of the sentence. Those are connected, right? Right. So the other thing I opened to in the index, and I've done videos explaining to people, learn to index information. That's what makes you learn how to find what you're looking for. So I was thinking, like, how am I going to tell people about grammar if I'm not really that familiar with sentence structure? Because I know sentence structure is an important part to understand when it comes to grammar. So, sure enough, I looked in the index, and right there's a thing on sentence structure. And it said, find E2. So, just as I did with the parts of speech, I marked it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to open the sentence structure. And it says, sentence structure. Although their structure can vary widely, sentences in English generally flow from subject to verb to object or complement. Bears eat fish. This section focuses on the major challenges that multilingual students face when writing sentences in English. For more details on the parts of speech and how they work together to form sentences, consult B, basic grammar. And we consulted B just a moment ago, before we even knew that this said that. You know, I opened to this and I was like, oh wow, I was just in section B, reading about the 8 parts of speech. So, so this particular section will tell you a little more about sentence structure, but for the purpose of this, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I just want you to be aware of sentences have specific structures. And also, it would do you well to learn a little bit about the 8 parts of speech so you can know what a particular thing is doing in a sentence. Like, why is that there? What's its function in the sentence? Is it a conjunction? Is it a pronoun? Is it referring back to the noun? So like whenever the Bible says Jesus, and then like a moment later it says he, you know, he's referring back to Jesus. And you know, depending on what all said in the sentence, it might not be referring back to Jesus. You have to learn what it's referring back to, because a pronoun has to have an antecedent. So, sorry, I'm out of view for a second. So some stuff that will help you learn some of the Greek rules of grammar would be, for example, this is called New Testament Greek for Beginners by Machen. And this will be a good book that will help you learn a little bit about Greek. Actually, I'm going to read the beginning to you real quick so you can learn a little bit about what the purpose of this book is in the preface. And I marked it so I could find it. This textbook is intended primarily for students who are beginning the study of the Greek Testament either without any previous acquaintance with the Greek language or with any acquaintance so imperfect that a renewed course of elementary instruction is needed. Owing to the exigencies of the present educational system or situation, many who desire to use the Greek Testament are unable to approach the subject through a study of classical Attic prose. The situation is undoubtedly to be regretted, but its existence should not be ignored. It is unfortunate that so many students of the New Testament have no acquaintance with classical Greek, but it would be still more unfortunate if such students, on account of their lack of acquaintance with classical Greek, should be discouraged from making themselves acquainted at least with the easier language of the New Testament. New Testament usage will here be presented without any reference to Attic prose, but a previous acquaintance with Attic prose, even though it be only a smattering, will prove to be an immense assistance in the mastery of the course. By students who possess such acquaintance, the lessons can be covered much more rapidly than by mere beginners. The book is an instruction book and not a descriptive grammar. Since it is an instruction book, everything in it is made subservient to the imparting of a reading acquaintance with the language. In a descriptive grammar, for example, the rules may be formulated with a lapidary succinctness which would here be out of place. The effort is made here to enter upon those explanations which the 15 years' experience of the author in teaching New Testament Greek has shown to be essential. In the descriptive grammar, moreover, the illustrations would have to be limited to what can actually be found in the New Testament, but in the present book they are reduced so far as possible to an ideally simple form, which does not always appear in the New Testament books. In this way, the vocabulary at every point can be confined to what the student has actually studied, and confusing footnotes can be avoided. It is highly important that only one grammatical point should be considered at a time. An introduction of illustrations taken from the New Testament would often so overlay the explanation with new words and the subsidiary usages unfamiliar to the student that the specific grammatical point under discussion would be altogether obscured. Of course, however, the effort has been made not to introduce into the illustrations any usages except those which are common in the New Testament idiom. The character of the book as an instruction book has also determined the choice and order of the material. The treatment has been limited to a few essential points, and no attempt has been made to exhibit the real richness and flexibility of the New Testament language, which can be discovered only through reading. This limitation may in places give rise to criticism, as for example in connection with the treatment of participles. The author is well aware of the fundamentally non-temporal character of the tenses in the participle, and also of the great variety and the shades of thought which the participle can express. But after all, it is highly important for the beginner to understand clearly the distinction between the present and the aorist participle, and that distinction can be made clear at the beginning only through the proper use of our temporal mode of thought. Only when what is simple and usual has been firmly impressed upon the student's mind by patient repetition can the finer and more difficult points be safely touched. The treatment of the participle, moreover, has been thrust as far forward as possible in the book in order that ample time may be allowed to practicing the usages which it involves. Experience shows that in learning to read New Testament Greek, the participle is almost the crux of the whole matter. Special attention has been given to the exercises until the very last few. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that to you, and then it goes on a little more about, I'll finish reading it. Special attention has been given to the exercises until the very last few lessons, and then only in the Greek English exercises. The sentences have not for the most part been taken from the New Testament, since the book is intended as an instruction book in Greek and not as a stimulus to memory of the English Bible. At a later stage in the study of New Testament Greek, the student's memory of the English Bible is not an unmixed evil, for repeated reading of already familiar passages will often fix the meanings of a word in the mind far better than it could ever be fixed by the mere learning of a vocabulary. But in the early stages, such assistance will do far more harm than good. In the exercises, the effort has been made to exhibit definitely the forms and grammatical usages which have just been discussed in the same lesson, and also to keep constantly before the mind in ever new relationships the most important usages that have been discussed before. The vocabularies have been limited to words which are very common in the New Testament, of which require special explanation. Everywhere the effort has been made to introduce the words in the illustrations and exercises, the learning of lists of words, unless the words so learned are actually used, is a waste of time. So, okay, I thought you might find that interesting, so I just read most of the preface to you in New Testament Greek for Beginners by Machen, and for his whole name is actually J. Gresham Machen. So, I'll get a little more into it with y'all, but I just wanted to read that for now, and I'm going to have to make a part 2 of this video because I'm running kind of long here, where I'm going to discuss the Hebrew Greek keyword study Bibles section on grammar, and I'm also going to read some from the Analytical Lexicon to the Greek New Testament by William D. Mounts. So I thought y'all might find some of this interesting and helpful. So, alright, well, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Bye.